Hey, Mike.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us here today. And for all of you who are with us, thanks for joining us here on Mondays with Matteo and the Creative Autism Solutions team YouTube channel. So today, and what I'm trying to do over the next few weeks here while we're all sequestered in our homes and trying to figure out what we're to do all day long, right? How do we keep our kids active? How do we keep them healthy? How do we keep them inspired to learn? How do we keep their attention? And this is happening, this is a challenge for all parents, not just of those with children on the autism spectrum. So I've asked Mike to join us today because we have started a program with him. Mike is the founder and director of SpecialFit down in LA. He has a gym. He's worked with so many students on the autism spectrum and those with other neurological challenges and physical challenges. And he's really come up with some amazing discoveries through all his work. And I will tell you, we've done a few videos on anxiety, especially in teenagers with autism lately. So many of us are going through this, and Mike's really come up with some amazing ideas that are helping. And what I wanted to do today was introduce Mike, let him give us a brief introduction about what he's doing and what he has to offer, because I think we're at home. This is a great time to add in something, maybe learn something new. And I was part of Mike's parent mentoring program that just ended. It was a SpecialFit parent mentoring group that he just started. And I learned so much, and I'm implementing a lot of it. For us, it's a gradual basis, but I'm already seeing changes. So I'm going to stop talking, and I want to ask Mike to share with you a bit about himself, quickly about your background, Mike, and then what the heck are you doing?
Oh, man, that's going to be a mouthful.
Yeah.
First of all, just, thank you for having me on. It's truly a pleasure and an honor. We go pretty way back when I came to visit Livermore, right?
Yep.
Years ago, was that 2 years ago or something?
2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, time flies.
Yeah.
My background starts with, the intervention field. I started my career working in the special needs community, doing speech and language assessments in the inner city, working with low-income families for Head Start programs, doing mental health assessments, and then working in the homes and stuff like that. From there, I changed to working as a floor time specialist, behavioral therapy, Miller method stuff. Did that for about 11 years. So I spent quite a long time working in that field, and then things quickly shifted when I was approached by one of my clients, and he introduced me to Ido Kadar, who authored Ido and Autism Land, and basically that changed everything for me, because meeting him and talking to somebody, communicating with somebody that, nonverbal, teenager, and for the first time getting to hear, somebody's voice firsthand coming through that letterboard was life altering for me, because it basically validated everything that I thought about people on the spectrum in terms of intelligence and stuff like that. So it really gave me the first opportunity to work with somebody and not come at it from an angle that, I was the expert coming in to quote unquote fix somebody, and so it was definitely life-changing. And, Ido expressed to me, he needed fitness, and he felt that was a key to him being able to do what he wanted to do with his life. And so, he was up for the challenge, I was up for the challenge, and we created something together that, the way it's evolved from then, which was back in 2011, I think was when I met him, to what it is now. It's, I wouldn't say it's night and day. It's just something that just got more precise as we learn more about autism. We learn more about what we think autism is, and then how do we take concepts of fitness, and then now we're incorporating so much more that it's gotten a little more complex, but also more precise, and learning about the polyvagal theory and other things that impact the nervous system. And we started to connect these dots. And, I can't even take any credit of that stuff, because I have a mentor myself, Julian Pinot, who owns StrongFit. And there was something that he had posted where he was basically coming out and saying, that he was on the spectrum, and he'd known it all along. And, for him to share that with us, and be very vulnerable about his experiences living on the spectrum, and what he's gone through as a child and then as an adult. And we learned a lot from him in connecting these dots. And he's, in my opinion, he's like the Einstein of fitness, because what he's been able to put together from a science perspective, from a physiology perspective, evolutionary biology, and to help us understand the nervous system a lot better, has allowed me to take those concepts and adapt them to people on the spectrum, because we're all human beings and we're affected by the same things, just not in the same way. And so that's basically what we've been working on. And through the years, I noticed that, that there are a lot of systemic issues when it comes to, school system, our health system, all of those things. And they're really failing, our people, our community. And so, Julian has taken it upon himself to address that issue from one standpoint. And I felt compelled to work with the community that I work with, and using these concepts and these principles, and to really share them and educate. Because, you look at, what's happening right now with the coronavirus, and we're now being exposed as human beings as to the way that we apply these concepts, that we're not doing a very good job of, really learning about things and applying them. Because it's easier to bottle something up, put a label on it, and sell it, than it is to educate people on a long-term basis, because if I came up to you, a while ago and say, hey, I got this thing, and, in about a month, you're going to be good, and blah, 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 you definitely would have bought that more than me telling you, hey, I'm going to mentor you for a month. And, but that was the only option I had, for you. So, and I think it's a better option, because that's what we need now. We need more leaders. We need more people. You're doing your podcasting. Like, that's what we need. We need people that have the knowledge and the experience, and are doing things, not just selling things, and selling them from I guess a superficial standpoint. We're so fixated with the way we look and things like that, as opposed to the pure health aspect. And we see anxiety, depressive behaviors, aggression, all of these things are a big, big factor. And it's because we're looking at things in a certain way. We all want tell me what to do and I'll do it. And if that were the answer, we'd all be fit. And it's just,
I'll tell you what, Mike, too, is on my autism journey with Matteo, I've always been a believer in being really involved, not sending Matteo to a therapy for someone else to do something with him. We can't be superhuman 24 hours a day, although we're having to right now, right? A lot of us are digging deep to find things to do to work with our kids and to help them. But it's a privilege to be able to be educated and to have mentors such as yourself taking time and in the spirit of helping us help our own children, because our students, because now look at us. Really, if I didn't have training in a lot of the things I'm trained in, I don't know what I'd do all day with Matteo. And certainly he would be maybe not progressing forward in some of the goals that I have for his life and that he has for his life and his body. Right. So I think it's really important. And thank you for the mentoring part, because we really need it.
Yeah. Without having the interactions that I have, like with people like you guys, and I've seen this consistently throughout the years, is that the parents that are more involved in the therapy or whatever it is, the better the outcome I see. And it's not just because you guys are putting in the grunt work and all of that, which is the most valuable thing, but it's also because what I notice more in the mentoring group, it's that collective experience, it's the communal intelligence. And Julian talks about that all the time. It's that we need to be able to take this information and apply it and use it, and to say, hey, look, these are principles that are common and universal to us, but they apply in such a different way, because the way I eat might not be the way that you eat, but we all need to eat, in terms of a principle, but the method of the way we eat is going to be slightly different, because I work a different job than you work, and so I have to listen to my nervous system and you have to listen to your nervous system. And so that's why the communal intelligence is so important, because, you as a parent have an opportunity to impact another person who is going through a similar struggle, but in a different way. And you can say, hey, look, I did this movement in this way. You understand the principle underlying that movement, but you have a way of saying, look, this is what worked for Teo. And now that parent can say, hey, that actually worked for my kid too. But they might come up with a slightly different version of that. But we're all expressing the same human needs here. So I think it's super valuable to continue to push for more of this type of education, where we're podcasting and learning things and interpreting those things and having a conversation about them, because the way I see it is that's the way forward is through the communal intelligence, platform.
Really important. And you mentioned two key things that you discuss in this parenting program, right? Diet and movement.
Yeah.
And to back up what you said earlier, I can tell you, Mike and I eat very differently. But now I'm changing too, and Mike asks the parents to go ahead and do this with our kids. And it's not easy all the time to make huge dietary changes all at once, especially when we have some eating sensitivities, we have texture sensitivities, we have all this stuff, sensory issues to deal with. So, but it's a gradual process, and we do what we can do. And after learning what Mike shared during this program, I'm certainly no expert, but he's still around to help out. And I'm already seeing huge differences. Teo's going to come over at the end here and say hi to you real quick and put his 2 cents in. But can you just touch briefly on what why this combination is important, this movement and eating?
Yeah. So our nervous system has evolved, and but for the last 600 million years, we've come to a place where the nervous system looks a certain way. And unfortunately, the way Western society works kind of goes against that, because of the way we eat the food that we eat. We don't traditionally, as a whole, I'm just making some generalizations here from the statistics and the impacts that we see. We're not winning the war on obesity and type 2 diabetes. We're actually going backwards. So the systems that we have put in place right now are not working. And so we have to look at these things. Hey, Teo. We have to look at these issues and go, why is it not working, and what's happening? So, when you look at the quality of food, that's one, right? If you look at the school system, what do they feed there, as opposed to other parts of the world? We don't have fresh vegetables and for the most part, the way we package our foods is always to make it aesthetically pleasing and taste good, which means sugar, right? So we're exposed to chemicals and sugars and things like that. And then the quantity of food, like never before have we ever consumed so much food. And in terms of the nervous system, the way we eat the macronutrients between proteins and carbohydrates and fats and stuff, we're always mixing them. And that never happened before. You had a season for different types of foods, and you ate them in different quantities depending on, what was accessible to you. But now everything's accessible all the time, And so that becomes a problem for the nervous system and for the gut. So a lot of the gut issues that we see are a problem between what we're ingesting and how we digest it. It's a problem in the nervous system, getting the nervous system in the proper state to digest. Mm-hmm. And you know, the gut being where the seat of behavior is, when we're seeing aggression and issues with depressive behaviors and anxiety, we know from what we've learned recently through new studies about the microbiome and microbiota and all of that stuff, the bacteria in our gut, that what we ingest and how we digest it makes all the difference in our behavior. And so, you know, if I was going to make one suggestion out there, is to eliminate the stimulants from your life, and that includes carbohydrates. And we can use them. It's just you have to use them in the right way. You know, you need them for, you know, high intensity or activity. But if I were to venture a guess, you know, especially if I were to target the autism population, is that a lot of our students are living very sedentary lifestyles. And when you look at the coronavirus right now, and you see a higher, basically it's a 4 times greater risk for type 2 diabetes and obesity. And now you have this issue with the virus spreading. And the people that are most vulnerable to it are people who are obese and have respiratory issues or weakened immune system. Then you see that there's a problem there. So if we're consuming these stimulants, spiking our insulin and going down all day long and confusing the nervous system, then we're not ever going to be in an optimal state to absorb those macronutrients and, you know, get the nervous system and circadian rhythm to dial in. So we have REM sleep problems and things like that because we're consuming these stimulants at the wrong time and in the massive amounts of quantities, you know.
Mike, would you mind sharing your secret of eating, just so maybe people, I don't know if you're going to get into that or not, but just so people can leave today with some information that they can maybe start implementing, and just, you know, what should we have for breakfast? What should we have for lunch? What should we have for dinner? And the rest they need to sign up for your class. But my thought today is they leave with, hey, maybe I can start implementing a couple things, and maybe one movement idea that would help. And then when can we learn more from you, and how do we go about doing that?
So again, like, I can't take credit for a lot of this stuff because, you know, it's Julian's thing. He's the one that came up with the wheel here. But how I speak to specifically to our community makes a difference. So the first thing I got to say about it is, it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it and why. So I'm going to share the why part with you really fast. So carbohydrates in general are a extreme food because they're fast dissolving, fast digesting, right? It's sugar ready energy. Mm-hmm. And proteins are a slow digesting food. So it's also an extreme food, meaning that it's, if you were to take like the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule, if you take that principle and put it into this system here, you get to understand why there's a problem in the nervous system when we are consuming extreme foods all day long. So if carbs are a extreme food, if you look at the bell curve here, and we're talking about carbs depending on where it is on the glycemic index, for instance. So if you had honey is very fast digesting. As soon as you put it in your mouth, you start to digest it. So it makes sense that something like that would be useful if you were working out. WOD is just workout of the day. Because you can ingest it and you would use it right away. You wouldn't get an insulin spike and then crash. So if you were doing some intensity work, that makes sense. Extreme for that one little part of your day. But over here, if you have protein as an extreme food, that makes sense that, let's say, steak being one of the hardest things to digest, beef, then that would make sense to eat it later in the day, because you need to be in a parasympathetic state for optimal digestion, because you can't be fully parasympathetic, rest and digest, and then get into action and have this protein in your belly when you're trying to move around. Right. So this is an extreme on this side, meaning nighttime, parasympathetic, rest and digest. So the protein being the heaviest thing or the hardest thing to digest, that would make sense on this extreme side. So what's left is the most efficient macronutrient that we have available to us, which is fats. So fats have a component of protein and carbs, so that's why we put it here. So that would be the 80% of what we should be consuming. Okay, so that would be daytime. So when you're, depending on what state you're in, what you're going to do, say I'm going to wake up and do computer work is going to be different if I'm going to be coaching or if I'm going to be moving around a little bit more active. So saturated fats being more towards the carb side, and then the unsaturated fats being more towards the protein side. So using those things to understand the why, you understand if you're eating carbohydrates all day long, and especially if you're eating them over here, that doesn't make sense, because if you were consuming carbs before you go to sleep, that would be the reason why you have issues with REM sleep, because you spike your insulin, then you crash, you go to sleep easily, but you don't stay asleep. And then you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to sleep because your nervous system, if you look at this wheel here, we have two different sides of the nervous system. One would be parasympathetic and the other would be sympathetic, and you have different states. You have flow, fight, freeze, and flight. So this side of it being the parasympathetic side and this being the sympathetic side. So if you're in that state and consuming carbohydrates at nighttime, then what happens after that is that anxiety is going to drive you towards action, which would be action is on this side, right? Whereas immobility or depression is on this side, which would be down here in freeze. So it doesn't make sense that we mix these macronutrients all day long and expect our nervous system just to adapt that way. So we're basically constantly asking for our gut microbiota and stuff like that to adapt to the way we're doing things, but it's not very efficient. It's not the way to go. So what I would say is that, you know, the way I wouldn't say it's not a secret per se, but because the nervous system is really old, but knowing and understanding the why and how, now we can choose methods, right? Because avocados work for me, but like you said, some students have, you know, sensitivities to certain textures and temperatures and things like that. But you know the why and you know the how. Now you go to the what. So experiment, work with it, try it, try things, try finding different fats that your kids will like and feed it to them throughout the day. Yeah. But on the extreme side, when it's time to do some really vigorous work, then you can give them those sweet potatoes or those potatoes on the rice to fuel the performance. But if there isn't going to be full action, full sympathetic state, you don't need this. You can make glucose through fats and protein.
So Mike, would that be, that's heavy workouts, just like you do in SpecialFit, pulling the sled, pushing, getting your heart rate over 120, right? Does that include running or treadmill work?
Everything.
Okay. So if we are going to eat carbs right afterwards, and this is the conversation you told me to have with Matteo too, and it seems to be working. You can have it if you need it because you've kind of addicted to it after all these years, right? We can't cut everything at once. It's too hard. I'm realistic here. Fine, going to have it, but it's got to be around noon, and you have to promise me we're going to go burn it off right away.
Yeah,
so,
and that's the thing. So with the protocol that we've introduced that you know, we experimented with, we have two phases. One is the no fix part, which is when we eliminate the stimulants. And the reason why we do this is that we need to clear the signals. So even though it may feel unrealistic in the beginning, what we teach our parents is that it's all about small wins over time. Yeah. It's a long game. So if we want to eventually get to a place where we can use anxiety and depression in the right way, because in nature there is no good or bad, there's just function.
Okay. Yeah.
Anxiety serves a purpose, and so does depression. but we only assign negative meaning to it because of when it's chronic.
Yeah.
So the way we dial this in at the beginning is to clear those signals. We got to clear the noise because there's already enough noise in there from the sensory system, right?
Right.
So we need to clear up some of those voices and some of those sounds that are just causing too much input overload and stuff like that.
Right.
So then we do that with the fats because the fats is a very efficient food macronutrient that feeds the gut, feeds the heart, feeds the brain.
Yeah.
So a lot of good things happen here. It's just slower than this. That's the only problem. And this is why we get addicted to it. It's so fast in terms of serotonin and dopamine reward center that that's why we get into this loop between these two states on the bottom and not enough in the top two states between flow and fight. Is that the serotonin, that the way it's being built in the system is dampening our ability to get into those states.
And I want to add, for other parents who've been down this road with me for all these years, all the conferences we've attended, all of the Dan doctors we've listened to, every dietitian that we've ever talked to, whether it's go gluten-free, go dairy-free, go whatever you've been on, low oxalate, blah, 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 never has it been explained with as much relationship to behaviors that we're seeing, especially as the kids get a little bit older.
Yeah.
And, you know, as gluten-free is very common, we're told to watch for certain behaviors that would go away with the gluten-free diet. We never saw that. We never saw a change with just gluten-free, but that's because we were still doing all the carbs without the gluten in them. So now it's making more sense.
It's really interesting when it comes to that, because what we've seen with people on the protocol is that they don't actually have a gluten intolerance. It's or lactose. So once they do this no fix and then go into auto regulation, which is the second phase where we reintroduce the carbs for performance or for work activity, that we notice that they don't actually have a gluten, or it's the carbohydrates that always mess with the nervous system.
Now, when you find something that gets rid of the nut allergy thing, then you're going to really be onto something. We have a nut allergy. But no, okay, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, Mike, and you're sharing all this amazing information. Maybe we can continue on someday if you're willing to come back and share more with us. But tell us when parents can join you on a parenting class the next time.
So we start them at the beginning of every month, because I like to go through a full month. We do 2 calls per week. All the calls are recorded, so you can't do it on your time. You know, on our time, you can do it on your time. And basically, we get you through all this information so that you can understand the fundamental principles of what we do. So just email us at either SpecialFit, info@specialfit.com. There's a hyphen between special and fit, or mike@specialfit.com, same thing, hyphen, and just let us know you want to be in the mentoring program, and we'll send you details by email. And we start them at the beginning of every month. So if you're not ready in May, then email me in May and I'll get you in there for June. So our whole system has really shifted to, yes, we work with students and everything like that, but in order to get to a place where our students are really gonna be impacted by this stuff, I felt like the parents and the practitioners, because we invite for the team to be on there whenever possible. You know, if they're working with therapists or different people on their team, we want to share that, because we want it across the board for everybody to be speaking the same language.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's super important, because again, you know, we're not selling a product or anything like that. We're selling something that's really old. It's the nervous system, but what we're selling is education. That's all we're selling, you know. So we want this information to be out there as much as possible. That's our mission with it, because I know that if our parents understand this, it's going to make a huge change, because we know that once we see our students fighting against these issues that we see with anxiety, because, you know, a lot of people think that autism and anxiety come hand in hand, and they're two separate things.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of prevalence of it because of the conditions and circumstances and things like that. And that's where I see the problem is, because if you were to take the dysfunction part of it, because most people talk about autism in terms of the dysfunction aspect of it, what you're really looking at is an intent. It's a thing that has an intent to it. And, so far what I gather is that autism's intent is to be really good at one thing. And whatever that thing is, we need to promote that thing instead of trying to fix the dysfunction aspect. We can do that. We can work on this stuff to try to get to the center of Teo and whoever else I'm working with it as a person, as a unique being, and go into let's get to that thing, because there's so much brilliance there. Like we see it all the time. And it's like, it's just an unfortunate thing that their beautiful brain is inserted into this neurotypical world.
Right.
I think they're the ones that are going to survive after us.
Yeah. Well, that's right. And you talk so much in your program, which I love, about the working with the sense of self, their sense of self, and how that's involved in their heart is involved, and their soul is involved in this entire thing. And this program nurtures and puts that up here as of primary importance. And I love the respect that just comes oozing toward our students as well as us as parents. And you're just the bomb. I don't even know what else to say. But I want to let everybody know we will put links to everything Mike's discussed. Ido's book, we'll put a link down there. Mike's way to contact him, and so you guys can hook up with him if you'd like. I'm going to tell you, just from changing Matteo's diet from maybe a pancake and bacon, which some other people in my family like to cook for him in the morning. And that wasn't every day, but it was enough to set the morning off to a crazy start, because that starts the OCD loop in craving the sugars. And once we stop doing that and having an avocado, which I was trying to convince him was going to taste like a pillow. It's like eating a pillow in your mouth. And he would carry it around for 2 hours, and bless his heart, trying to get that in, put cream cheese in with it. And it was so hard for him texture-wise. So now what we've done is I make avocado ranch dressing, and we have spinach salad for breakfast. Ooh. And he begs for tomatoes to be added. Nice. So that's the breakfast. And I just glomp a whole bunch of the dressing in there, but adding that bit of texture makes it more easy for him, his palate to intake. So we just have to play with it. Bless his heart, he was trying with just that avocado, but it was just almost too painful to watch,
That's like a perfect example of what I'm saying. So you understand this, and then you came up with that method. Like, I didn't have to tell you to do that. You figured that out because you understand the why.
Yeah.
You come up with the what.
And then you see the difference.
Yeah, totally.
Just like that. It's crazy. It's crazy. And then we have a salad for lunch with vegetables, because Mike's rules: fat all day, right? Vegetables all day, fat in the morning and noon, and as much protein as you want at night. And then that sets their circadian rhythm, and they have a great night's sleep. So kind of simple when you can narrow it down like that. And if something that simple can make such a huge difference, especially with the anxiety piece, we're all pretty desperate looking for answers that can help get our kids off medications and things like that, and change their lives, give them back their control.
Yeah, if we could get them to sleep better and get off the meds, you would see a big change in a lot of people.
Exactly. Did you want to say something? Let's see. Here, I'm going to put this down so you can see him spelling here. Okay. Find it. I find it. Am find it. S. So you can talk if you want. I am so glad. M I L I.
Yeah.
I am so glad millions
Oh, man.
of P and E O P L, millions of people, W I L, will, S E C T H I, see this, A N, find it, and find it, where are you going? L E, find it, A and R, and learn, F R O, from, M I K E. I'm so glad millions of people will see this and learn from Mike, B E C A U S, because I am, F and E L I, feeling, M O R, more, L I K, like, M what's M what?
Yeah.
Like me, okay? A G A I, again, find it, A L and R E and A D Y, because I'm feeling more like me again already. So there you go, millions.
Yeah, let's get them.
All right. Well, thanks again, Mike, for all you're doing for our community and the world at large, and for being such a wonderful supporter and knower of the truth of what lies within people with an autism spectrum condition. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
All right. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.